Also on this tragic day for Vienna, for Austria, but also I think for our democratic free society. You already have heard from this terrorist attack yesterday evening here in Vienna, at the center of Vienna at 6 different places, yes. 8 o'clock in the evening. There were 5 persons killed. One of them was one of the terrorists and several injured. The investigations are still going on. Several persons have been arrested up to now. And the Viennese population has been asked not to leave their homes. So the streets are quite empty now. When I went with the bike here to university, it was really quiet on the street. So this is the current situation. I think the attack is over and the investigations are going on. I also would like to express our all deepest sympathy for the victims and their families and friends. And we discussed shortly a cancellation of today's event, but then we decided that not to give in because this would somehow be what these terrorists want to achieve, and to continue our dialogue and our discussions on digital humanism, because our vision is related to this digital humanism as a future society based on freedom of speech and also humanistic values. So we should not give in and continue the work. Thanks. I also have to thank for all the support we have received from all over the world and the friends, and especially from those who cannot participate at this online discussion today. But this day is also remarkable due to other reasons, 2 other reasons. Bad events don't come alone, really happen alone. We have today the start with the Corona lockdown in Austria because we have rising numbers, so it's similar to other European countries, and we are not allowed to leave home at night, and restaurants are closed and so on. And there's also some special event. There is election in the US. I hope this is not another bad event, and let's keep finger crossed. So thanks for joining and welcome for discussing how AI is reshaping our world. Now more from a philosophical point of view and not so much on a technical. For those who are here for the first time, please have a look at our talks and announcement on our website. All our talks are streamed and recorded in our YouTube channel. Before handing over to Viola and thanking Viola for organizing and moderating this panel, 3 short technical issues. So it's streamed on YouTube and recorded on YouTube and published afterwards. So please be aware of that. During the presentations, please mute your phone and you can raise your hand when you want to have a question or a comment. And we have changed today at the end. We will have no music piece because we thought this would not be appropriate, but just announce our next event, which will take place on the 19th and 20th November, and this will be done at the end. So thanks for joining again, and I hand now over to Viola Schiaffonati. She is who organized and moderates the event. She's an associate professor of logic and philosophy of science. So this is still the old study program where logic is part of philosophy. She does this at the Dipartimento di Elettronica, so it's, let's say, the computer science electronics department of the Politecnico di Milano. And she's teaching things like computer ethics or philosophy of computer science. And she has her research interests in philosophical issues, obviously, of AI and robotics, methodology of experiments in computer engineering and computer science, and also the analysis of ethical issues in intelligent systems. So it's a broad range coming from another side, which I think we heavily need in computer science. She has a PhD in philosophy, and she has been a visiting scholar at the University of Berkeley and at the Stanford University, both in US. Thank you, Viola, and now the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Hannes. Welcome to this panel on ethics and IT, how artificial intelligence is reshaping our world. Our goal today is to investigate artificial intelligence from a philosophical perspective. And in particular, we will discuss the ethical implications of artificial intelligence and the global challenges raised by the widespread adoption of artificial intelligence tools. These challenges will be addressed by our three excellent speakers from different cultural and geographical perspectives. So our first speaker today is Deborah Johnson. Deborah Johnson recently retired as the Anne Shirley Carter Olson Professor of Applied Ethics in the Science, Technology and Society program in the School of Engineering at the University of Virginia. Best known for her work on computer ethics and engineering ethics, Johnson's research examines the ethical, social, and policy implications of technology, especially information technology. So, Deborah, thank you very much for joining us today. Please go ahead with your talk. You have 20 minutes.
Okay. Thanks so much for having me, for inviting me, Viola. I'm going to take advantage of being the first speaker and just put some sort of general things on the table that maybe people already know. But I think what I want to do is focus our attention on two aspects of AI, artificial intelligence, both the decision-making capacity, and then later I'll talk more about the enabling, what I would call the enabling capacity. So decision-making, I think all of you know, but let's just, as I said, get it on the table. AI is now used to make decisions in this sort of endless wide range of domains of life. Who gets loans and mortgages, what sentences are given to convicted criminals, who's released for probation, what job advertisements are shown to which groups, potential candidates for jobs, how colleges are ranked, how cars react when something comes in front of them, what music or video recommendations are provided to users, so on and so on. So the change I think that's underway is not, I mean, we could compare it to this. It's both, it is automation, but it's not just automation. It's algorithms, but it's not just algorithms. Though you could see AI as an extension of both of those things. And really, I think today what we should be concerned about is not just AI, but a particular kind of AI, namely AIs that learn. I've now been, as I've been reading around, there's now this new term called, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's GoFi, which refers to good old-fashioned AI. So it's no longer good old-fashioned AI. It's this new phenomena of learning. Machine learning is just one kind of it. So, and it's that learning capacity of AI that for me raises the big ethical issues, because what it means is that the people who design the AI, as well as the people who use the AI, don't really understand how the AI learns. That is to say, the AI, they don't understand what basis or what correlations or connections the AI is using to make these really potent decisions about individuals. So one big philosophical area, which I'm not going to talk about, but I'm sure some of you are interested in, is, what do we mean when we say that we don't understand or do understand how a technology like AI works? Because it's so complex and there's so many different ways to understand it, levels and kinds of understanding, which I'll come back to again when we talk about sort of responses. So I just read a piece by Joel Wormsley in which he writes, this is a nice quote that just encapsulates what I think we should be concerned about. At the intersection of machine learning and big data, we have built automated systems that we do not fully understand, that are much faster and more powerful than the human mind, in which are trained on data sets that are too large for us to comprehend, even with the use of conventional tools, he adds, such as spreadsheets or pocket calculators. So that kind of encapsulates, we don't understand how they work, they're very powerful, and they make these decisions about us. So why do we have AI then? Why are people attracted to it? Why is it desirable? Why am I? So just to mention a few, again, I'm just kind of getting on the table what I see as the kind of standard dialogue or discourse. So on these positive sides, people point out that AIs can make decisions that better than humans. That is, they point out that the decision-making capabilities of humans are limited, at least in certain domains, and often prone to error and bias. Human decisions are. So in certain contexts, algorithms can do better than humans. And to be fair here, let me just give you an example. I think one area is in the medical domain in tumor detection. I don't think it would be questioned that AIs can do better than humans, though there are complicated things we could say about that. Then there are some activities that humans couldn't even do that wouldn't be possible without AI. There are contexts in which AIs can make determinations that would have been, because of their scale, would have been impossible. An example here is fraud detection in online transactions. There are just so many things going on, and it's so complicated that if you didn't have algorithms, in particular AI algorithms, you probably couldn't do it. So scale, I think, and number of factors, number of operations, and speed are the virtues, I think, of AI. So given those things, what's the problem? Well, there are all these risks, you call them risks, threats, dangers, harms that are associated with the decision-making that AI does. And I want to talk about three, and that's safety, bias, and then I've just thrown in, to kind of shake it up, what I call threats to information integrity. So some of the safety and bias, again, probably well-trodden territory, you're familiar with it. I think the safety issue, the way I think about it is that it's come to our attention most prominently in the context of autonomous vehicles. That is, there's all this hype about autonomous vehicles, and their success really depends on the development of AI systems that will assist in various functions of the car, in particular, or most notably, the systems that detect objects in a vehicle's path. There have already been several accidents that you guys know about, I'm sure, with fatalities that are traced back to failures in the AI. And so that's drawn attention to the trustworthiness and reliability of AI decision-making. So in contexts where safety is an issue. Other domains, nuclear power plants, surgery, et cetera. So what I think the main thing I want to kind of try to focus our attention on, or at least recommend to you, is that when it comes to the safety, this is what I've learned from thinking about autonomous vehicle safety and reading about it. The issue isn't really just whether or not the cars will ever be safe enough, or whether you can get the AI to be safe enough. It's really a question of how we're going to determine safety. In other words, right now, we don't even have standards. We don't even have ways of thinking about what safety would count as in the case of autonomous vehicles. And I think you could say that more broadly about other contexts in which AI is used. In other words, how do you, it's not just, you know, in the case of autonomous vehicles, driving the cars for a certain number of miles. It has much more to do with how you, what standards you would set before the cars hit the road. How would you know? How would you test? How would you find out? So that seems to me a really important issue. Actually, an issue that I think philosophers can contribute to because of the notion of safety and how human beings set this, you know, develop safety standards. It's not sort of a natural thing. Okay. Second issue is fairness. Again, I think you already know about that. Algorithms have been found in many, many different contexts to produce racially and gender biased decisions. Probably the one that's received the most attention is in criminal justice, where there's strong evidence that there's racial bias in algorithmic systems that identify where crimes are likely to occur and which individuals are likely to commit them. And also a racial bias in systems that make recommendations about parole to correctional offender boards. The other one that I think has received less attention, but sort of is there, is in hiring and recruitment decisions. And there, I think it's race as well as gender. In particular, the ones I've read about have to do with how AIs are used to determine where ads are shown and to who, and that they've been skewed to white men. But it's also true in loan and mortgage lending, et cetera. And then a kind of more interesting one I just came across that I hadn't heard before was there's actually some gender bias in AI translation system, language translation system, where because of the way the algorithm works, you have to, when you're translating from something, a language that is gender neutral to a language that's gendered, the AI algorithm has to make decisions about how to do that translation. And there's some evidence that when these systems do that, they favor male terms. So if it's a context of medicine, referring to doctors as he's rather than she's, etc. Okay, so lots of issues about bias. Now, what's interesting to me about the bias issue is that bias can be introduced in multiple different ways in an AI, and we have to take that into account. So it can be that the training data for the AI has bias. It can be something about the focus of what the algorithm is designed to do. It can be in the way it processes. It can be in the fact that an AI may be moved from one context to another. And it also can be in the way the results of the AI processing, the decision are interpreted. So you've got a whole bunch of different ways to look for bias in AI systems. And then the other way to kind of just begin to sort that out is when in the design of algorithms, there are a whole bunch of decision points for designing the algorithm that are, some people, computer scientists call them subjective, in which bias can be introduced. So in the selection of data sets, in the process, often you have to modify the data in order to get it to the data sets to be compatible. In deciding when the model is accurate, when you've checked it enough or tested it, in choosing which features of the output are significant. All of these are, and then in weighting the features within the AI. So all of these are points at which bias can be introduced. All right, so that's enough on safety and bias, just a quick review. The third thing I wanted to talk about was the threat to information integrity. And this one is unusual. I'm including it just because I have been working on deep fakes, trying to write a little bit about deep fakes. And So it's in the case of deep fakes, which means that AIs are used to help individuals produce deep fakes, that is to take audio and video and alter it and change it so that it portrays individuals doing things that they never said or did. This is an interesting case because it looks, it's like other kinds of automation, it's like other kinds of algorithms in the sense that it enables individuals to do something which they couldn't do without the algorithm or the AI. I think of it like way back, there was a big issue, I don't know, some of you might remember, about script kiddies. These were kids who broke into computer systems, but they didn't have the technical expertise to do it on their own. But there were these scripts that had been developed and kind of posted online that just enabled them to do it very quickly and easily. So it's that enabling thing. Well, you've got the same thing here with AI, synthetic media AIs that allow you to manipulate video and audio, and it puts it in the hands of relatively unskilled people. And leads to all kinds of mischief, which then undermines the integrity of information that we access at various places on the internet. And so the thing I wanted to emphasize there is that, again, it goes back to this learning capacity of the AIs, not so much the decision making, and it's the learning capacity that kind of is that further enabling. So ultimately, that's one of the harms, a different kind of harm. So I don't know how I'm doing time-wise, but so final thing for us to talk about, I think, is how do we respond to, or how should we respond to AI and these kind of ethical concerns that they raise? Well, this is probably the more interesting thing to all of you. So the primary, as I read the literature, the big thing that is being said over and over again is that the problem with AI in general and learning AIs is the opacity of the decision making, the opacity of the processes. And because, in other words, it's the fact that we can't see it, we can't understand it, we can't know how it works. And as a result of that, the big focus of attention in this literature is on transparency. So transparency is seen as the solution. Opacity is the problem, transparency is the solution. So lots of attention has been given both to policies that require transparency and to actually technical research directions that would develop ways to make algorithms informing, self-explanatory. However, it's really unclear what's meant really by transparency, or what, and again, this is a great philosophical question about, what it means to be transparent. What is it you have to show? It's much more complicated than, just showing everything. It's always a relationship between the viewer and what's viewed, what's important to show that's relevant to the viewer. So you guys probably have thought more about this than I, because the EU GDPR, has put the emphasis on explainability. One is entitled, the GDPR says, to an explanation if one is turned down by an automated system. I'm still not sure that whether we understand explainability well enough, or what the relationship between the explanation and the thing has to be. So this seems to me to be a real problem. I just read an interesting article that claims, that argues that instead of transparency, we should be focused on contestability. In other words, that things have to be revealed in a way so that it's possible to contest them. In other words, you have to show enough or tell enough. In my own work, I prefer to kind of see the overarching issue of transparency, explainability, explicability, all of that is really just accountability. And I have been working on accountability as a kind of philosophical concept. And just to put this in context, my big gripe is that too much of the attention has been put on the algorithm and the making transparent what the algorithm does, and not enough attention just put on accountability as a broad concept that involves actors, forums that are holding those actors accountable. It's a kind of social practice. It involves shared beliefs. It involves norms. It involves sanctions. It involves performances. In other words, when you're held accountable, there's a relationship between the person who's acting and the group of people who they're accountable. They have to share, among other things, the belief that an explanation is owed, that the actor has an obligation to provide an explanation, and then they have to share, most importantly, they have to share beliefs about the appropriate norms for the context. And then there's also the norm of, or the shared belief that sanctions are called for if the actor, violates the norms. So I think the solution is not necessarily or only in making the operations of the algorithm accessible. In other words, I'm not arguing against that. I think that's a good thing. But the solution has to be much more than that, and it has to do with, it has much more to do, I think, with the designers and the users of AI. And the designers having a sense of the consequences of their development, and the users sort of understanding what they're doing when they use these AIs. So again, this goes back to what I said earlier about the delving more deeply into the decisions that are involved in a design or a use of an AI. Is the training data, the focus, all those things I mentioned earlier. So I didn't develop that very fully. I just kind of laid it out there, but I think I probably should stop there. Look forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Deborah. You raised many issues. In particular, you stressed the importance of the philosophical analysis in a sense. So please save your questions for the debate later, okay? And then we will have space for the question. But now I'd like to ask Guglielmo Tamburrini to talk. Guglielmo Tamburrini is a philosophy of science and technology professor at Università di Napoli Federico II in Italy. His main research interests include the ethics of human interactions with robotics and AI systems. He was coordinator of the first European project on the ethics of robotics, and he was awarded the Giulio Preti International Prize for his research and teaching on ethical implication of ICT and robotic technologies. And he is a member of the ICRAC, International Committee for Robot Arms Control. Guglielmo will talk about the global challenges for AI ethics. So thank you very much, Guglielmo. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this invitation, Viola, Hannes, and all. Yesterday, as I was staring at the TV screen, looking at the scenes from Vienna, I was thinking maybe in sign of mourning we should cancel this meeting, but now I'm quite happy, perhaps it's not the right word, to be here because it's a sign of resistance, as Hannes said. So I will share with you some slides. My idea is just to, to lay out a few things for discussion, starting from this distinction, which is already apparent from many things that Deborah Johnson said about local, the structural, and the global changes that AI raises. So that it's all this ethical thinking is about a multi-layered space. So let me. Okay, let me go to the presentation here. Okay, so the local challenge, well, it was very well described by Deborah, concerns specific application domains which go from job hiring and careers and deciding about loans, insurance granting, parole granting in criminal law and other things like that. And of course, there is a lot of work to do, which has traditionally been organized into two layers, which one is the identification and the analysis of the ethical issues. But then somehow the idea is also to produce at the end perhaps multiple policies, multiple possible ethical policies, which should be given to for public or personal deliberation. So that's in a certain way, this is a way of looking at the local problems, which are most important, but still look at individual trees from a wider landscape, which is made of a big wood, of a big forest. And these overarching issues across application domains in AI are very tantalizing, and I will consider two of them, two kinds. One is structural, and also Deborah Johnson talked about them. These are inherent in current AI technology. And one of the big problems for ethics, but not only for ethics, is the unresponsiveness of current AI technologies and systems to reasoning. And the other kinds of problems that go across lots of applications is the global. They don't have merely a task-oriented implications for humanity, but they have big implications for the huge problems that humanity has to deal with. And in addition to pandemics, maybe the list is very short. We can put a couple of them, or certainly where AI has a role to play on this list. And one is the AI, I would say, ambivalent role as concerns the climate crisis. So that's one of the big global issues of our era. And the other thing is that is the threat of global conflicts. And in that also AI is contributing, because there is a new arms race towards the weaponization of AI. And so the threats for peace and international stability that this may raise. Okay, so let me say something about these kinds of structural and global challenges that AI ethics has to face. And also a little bit, since I come from Europe, about the EU struggles or attempts to cope with some of this. So I say the structural, it was already mentioned. The structural challenge is that current AI we'll say it's not transparent, it's opaque, and especially about reason responding norms and accountability, which are important not only, of course, in ethics. For example, we have logical norms. When we engage into arguments, we would like other agents to fulfill some certain norms for good reasoning, and so, for example, to produce sound arguments according to some idea of soundness. We have scientific norms which govern our communities. Agents should conform to experimental method, causal reasoning, and other things like that. And then, of course, there is the more specific moral norms domain. Agents should in some way, whatever that means, as was emphasized before, explain and justify their moral decision. Now, this problem of viscosity of reason responding and opacity is a long-standing issue in AI. For those who are, old enough to have practiced good old-fashioned AI, they know that in expert systems there was a problem about shallow expert rules, simply associating certain input patterns, for example, medical science or medical data, to an illness as an output. In connectionism, things got in a certain sense worse because we went to do sub-symbolic processing rather than symbolic processing typical of logical approaches, but there was a certain control in many from humans in many of these procedures because, for example, data sets and features were selected by humans. And at each of these stages, there were, hopes to solve some of these problems. For example, with the hybrid connection symbolic systems. And today, of course, we have the DPI problems, the raw data, the features which are not in our control and maybe not understandable. Maybe explainable artificial intelligence, the program that was a few years ago launched by the DARPA agency, will provide some partial answers to this. But what are EU views on this sort of structural challenges? Let me just point out, bring to your attention a couple of documents. One is from an ethics report from a big European project, Humane AI, which is still going on, I believe. And they say that to ensure accountability is the goal, decisions should be derivable or explained by the decision-making mechanism. Every AI system should operate in understandable and verifiable and justifiable ways. But now, since we have this difficulty, this stumbling block, and maybe there is a promissory note that it will be resolved in the future, how should we take that? As a desire or as a necessary condition? If we take it as a necessary condition, definitely we have a problem because we have to throw out of the window many kinds of applications which are also usable. So as usual, there is a problem of tension between different demands and some kind of prioritization or amalgamation or harmonization should be found. The same, it was mentioned, the GDPR, and especially this Article 22, the subjects, the data subject has the right to obtain human intervention on the part of the controller and to contest the decision. But the controller is in the same shoes as the data subject in certain way, because the controller doesn't have many ideas about the intermediate steps of reasoning or whatever, the intermediate processing steps. And so as in a certain sense, the same problem of opacity as the data subject has. So we are giving too many responsibility to the data controller? Are we using the data controller as a scapegoat for a problem that we cannot solve or not? I think that's the state in a certain sense of the discussion in the EU about this problem. Let me go to the global challenges. AI has an ambivalent role to play in climate crisis. On the one hand, we know that AI can tackle many climate change problems by its optimization algorithms. For example, as far as the production, storage, distribution, and use of electrical energy, or in many other domains as emphasized by this climate change AI group in a great paper. But at the same time, we know this is a great title, I think, from the MIT Technology Review that many of you probably have seen. Training a single AI model can emit as much carbon as 5 cars in their lifetimes, and only to publish a decent paper in the area, probably you have to train and compare the results of maybe of a few or dozens of AI models. So there is a problem there. And in fact, the problem is barely seen from the point of view of the recent EU policy papers. Is not elaborated in depth at all. For example, we have the recent white paper on AI, where the need is just expressed in very few lines. on page 2, it says the paper says the environmental impact of AI systems needs to be duly considered, which is a sort of very general remark. And in a footnote, the reader is referred to an accompanying EU digital strategy document. But then you go and look at this document, which was published and made public the same day, on February 19th of this year, Shaping European Digital Future. Then there are remarks which are not at all specific about AI, but more about infrastructure for all the ICT world, data center and telecommunications. And again, it said that they can and should become climate neutral, and very soon, but it's not an AI specific recommendation. So how is still an open question, at least as far as the European debate is concerned. And but an agenda for an AI environmental friendly AI or an AI ethics concerning the environment can be already very rich. For example, certainly we have scientific, ethical, and policy shaping challenges of very different kinds. There's the scientific side, for example, we should develop suitable metrics. We know already of the difficulty of giving realistic assessment of what is the ICT contribution to the global carbon equivalent emissions. We have to collect empirical data, not only the metrics. One should try, and people are trying also, to make environmentally more thrifty, less energy consuming AI models. One should point, as in ethics one many times does, to good practices in this respect, and a possibility that more efficient uses also have rebound effects, incentivizing more widespread use of AI systems. And at the same time, if we think that we cannot collect without any limit and process all the data that the AI systems need, then we have to distribute somehow at national, international levels certain decision-making powers on how to do that, and also for granting access to AI resources, which from the environmental point of view, one may start thinking that are scarce. And these have to be distributed in an equitable, in a fair way. So this is, let me go to the second and final, point about international stability in AI, because AI is playing an important role, and probably this role will increase in the near future. For example, in the near future, AI in cyberspace, which is this new warfare domain, will become important, not only warfare, but of course a world in which there will be attacks and defenses, also outside wars between states, will become important as a tool to defend business, individual states against attacks, but at the same time also to develop more efficient attacks by learning systems which will learn to identify vulnerabilities and exploit them. Well, in traditional warfare, there is also, you see the same ambivalence. On the one hand, the information processing improvements may contribute to reduce risks to human soldiers, save lives, but on the other hand, we are witnessing to destabilizing AI arms race, and this concerns the discussion. Probably many of you are familiar with this, about the so-called autonomous weapon systems. That is to say, weapons that, especially because they leverage on AI perceptual and information processing capacities, may be able to engage military targets, first to select and then actually engage military targets without any human supervision. Now, let's see, I think that this is a very telling example. This has to do with the adversarial testing of neural networks, of AI systems. Here you see on the left-hand side, you see a school bus, which is typically an object protected by the international humanitarian law, the laws of war. You should not attack a school bus directly. Maybe it's a side effect, but it cannot be attacked directly. Now, what happens is that if you perturb, so this system has been trained to distinguish between various types of objects, school buses or ostrich or other types of objects. And with a very small perturbation of the left-hand side image, which is here magnified 10 times to make it visible to us, you get the right-hand side image of the school bus. But this perturbed image is just the same to us. It doesn't, we are robust. We don't change our classification of this second image as a school bus into something else. But the neural network was fooled into recognizing it as an ostrich, which is definitely is not even an endangered species and definitely is not protected by international humanitarian law or jus in bello or the laws of conducting just wars. Okay, so here we have this big problem which has to do a lot also with the global issues of global stability and peace. We have a destabilizing AI arms race, for especially towards autonomy in weapon systems. This will bring possibly the pace of war beyond human control capabilities, possible violation of international humanitarian law due to AI disasters, which human beings may not incur into. And of course, then you would get, if this brings about a war crime, this will bring about also an accountability gap and possibly violations of the human dignity of the victim. On the other hand, you have, of course, greater weapon precisions, efficiency, strategic military advantages, and possibly from the precisions, you have a promissory note, especially that in the future, maybe you will get reduced victim, reduced numbers of victims on the battlefield. So what did the European Parliament do? And I'm coming to rapidly to a close. Well, it chose definitely one side of this prioritization problematics. It chose the restriction prohibition side. Okay. Because it called for to ensure meaningful human control over the critical functions of all weapon systems. And a similar proposal, since we are in Austria, we are hosted remotely in Wien, was made by Austria at the relevant meeting of the conventional weapons in Geneva, at United Nations in Geneva a couple of years ago. And then the European Parliament went as far as asking for a prohibition of lethal or multi autonomous weapon systems. Well, I leave you with other possibilities. Certainly regulation is needed because they can, I mean, the pace of war that these systems can bring about can easily go beyond human control. And so it's very understandable, this idea of meaningful human control. But probably you cannot put all autonomous weapon systems in the same basket. One size of human control does not fit all of them. So for example, I am advocating together with somebody else, Daniele Amoroso and other people are working on this issue, an approach which is prudential, which by default asks to adopt the stricter forms of, by default, of human control, like the European Parliament is inviting us to do, but is differentiated at the same time, in the sense that maybe for only defensive anti-material systems, we can be more permissive to save lives, so for ethical reasons. And also it must be principled, because it must be really principled in some ethical ground principles which are embedded into international humanitarian law. and the like. So I'm done. And but essentially, what I would like to say that in the end, I think that AI is changing our world, also from an ethical point of view, because it's changing not only a number of ethical issues concerning this application, that other tasks which are ethically, of course, sensitive tasks, but also is changing the way we have to think about global challenges, and also how the structure of our relationship with and interactions with intelligent systems, non-human intelligent systems, which may be in certain ways are also super human, but from other points of view are rather poor reasoners and require certainly human interaction and human proper alliance between machines and humans in proper ways from an ethical point of view. Okay, that's, I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much, Guglielmo. While you are unshare your screen, let me present you the next speaker, Yi Zeng. Yi Zeng is professor and deputy director at Research Center for Brain-Inspired Artificial Intelligence and director of China-UK Research Center for AI Ethics and Governance of the Chinese Academy of the Sciences. He is the director for the Research Center on AI Ethics and Governance, Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence. He also professor at School of Humanity and School of Artificial Intelligence, University of Chinese Academy of Sciences. So thank you very much for having accepted this invitation, in particular for you are in the middle of the night. So please go ahead with your talk, Building Ethical Artificial Intelligence for the Human AI Symbiotic Society.
Thank you, Viola, and the team for the invitation. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see the change of the slide now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Again, thank you for the team for the invitation, especially from my friend, Professor Linda Hartman. It's been a great opportunity to explore what we have in AI ethics and to discuss the essentials for the next generation AI. I think before we going into the details, we need a landscape of the vision of where are we going for AI. I think AI ethics is not only talking about what we shouldn't do, but actually the original motivation should be that where are we going? So here I have a sketch of what we have all over the world, the vision of AI. So starting with human-centric AI, that is from Stanford AI, Human-Centered AI Center, and then also the Japanese proposal on humanistic AI. And then you have the EU version, trustworthy AI. And also at Berkeley, people are talking about human-compatible, which is related but very different to human-centric AI. Where when you are having human centricity, maybe you put so much emphasis on the human benefits. And then you have AI for social good, or from Microsoft, and also for responsible AI from Google. So many of the proposals are like beneficial AI, where you need to ask, well, what is the benefits for? Is it only for human, or is it, or it is also for ecology? A more, I would say, a more visionary proposal would be AI for sustainable development, or AI for optimizing symbiosis, which is more ecology-centric version of the AI that I personally long for. So analysis on the AI ethical principles worldwide that shows that there are not so much differences concerning about the big topics. So when you go into these 10 topics that I classify them, you see that the more of consensus instead of differences. But when you go into finer granularity of what people are talking about, actually there are a lot of very different perspectives when talking about similar ideas. For example, when you talk about partnership or cooperation, people use collaboration, partnership, or cooperation or dialogue. They're very related, but they're very they're also very different from many perspectives. So what I see the current landscape of AI ethical principles in a global manner is really that it's really complementary with each other instead of competing with each other. So I think that's the spirit we need to go for. So basically, none of the AI ethical principles actually cover more than 70% of the ideas from other proposals. So that means no one is going to be great, but really that the idea is really complementing. So when you put all the ethical principles together, you see that there are bigger names like risks, privacy, safety, biases, trust, but you also see many small words. It's not that they're not really essential, it's really that they're kind of emerging topic that needs more discussion. You might be really interested in the character that shows in the middle. That's a Chinese character, which means harmony and also optimizing symbiosis. I think the idea of harmony is really rooted in the ancient Chinese philosophy, where when we are talking about harmony among self, family, and the government, and also harmony among different races and countries. And now the idea is more on harmony is not only about that, it's really on harmony between human and AI as a symbiotic society. When we talk about the ideas at the UNESCO occasion, when we developed the global ethical principles together, that people from Japan says, oh, this is also deeply rooted in Japanese philosophy, where the word wa is a Japanese cultural concept, usually translated into English as harmony. That means a social group in which members prefer continuation of a harmonious community over their personal interest. And then people from South Africa says, hey, you know what? Actually, the idea of harmony is really deeply rooted into African philosophy, which I'm quite happy about, because you see that the idea is really that that everybody belongs to a greater whole, that when you diminish, and it's diminished when others are humiliated, or diminished when others are tortured or oppressed. So you see very similar idea that really bring us together. In China, we have organizational principles like the Beijing AI principles that we published last year, and then a month later we published the national governance principles of the new AI. The mechanism that realized these principles is like this. For the Ministry of Science and Technology is doing umbrella design, and then to actually to use these principles to guide the innovation and development pilot areas for the new generation AI in China, Beijing being the first, and then Shanghai, and then Shenzhen, with 15 areas for now in China, and also with 15 open innovation platform that is managed by AI giant companies in China. But all of them has to be evaluated by these principles annually, and within the report for the new generation AI in China. I think I must share one of the examples in here is that we have the food delivery riders that were actually trapped in the AI planning algorithm because when they send food during the pandemics, like 30 minutes, they can do it. But the algorithm says that 90% of the food deliverer riders, they can do it in 25 minutes. So in this case, the system moved the limitation to 25. And then for those riders, they're actually going against the traffic rules and then just to lose their lives. So the problem is really that the algorithm itself doesn't really understand what does it mean to human life when you actually speed up the optimization process. So for now, actually, I think we have machines that process information, but we do not have machines that understand. That really don't understand what do we mean by lose life for your friends and your colleagues. And if you really want to understand, we need to thinking before understanding. But the problem is really that the current machine is not really thinking. So you see many AI safety problems, like our colleague discussed in the previous two talks. And 60 years ago, that the Nobel winner says that we have been better quite sure that the purpose we put in the machine is the purpose we should really desire. This is fundamentally true for these 60 years, but nothing has been changed. So during the pandemics, when we go into the privacy concern for facial recognition in public health, doing a survey in all provinces in China, with more than 1,000 people as participants distributed in all provinces, in provinces. And then we found that it's not really that people are always saying that we can forget a little bit about the privacy to ensure that the public health crisis management system works. It's not the case. People said that we're not really giving our privacy. What we say is that if the government can provide a safer infrastructure, then it turns out that we believe the government more than previous years because you're doing a great job. But if you cannot really secure our data, there's no reason that we trust you to give us the data. You see that my picture is on the health code system. It's a tracker, but you also see that the data is saved on the Beijing Big Data Center. So if something goes wrong, I know where I'm going to complain. So there's an evaluation on MIT Technology Review saying that they have a tracker for all the tracking system. So it says that we can analyze the system from different ethical point of view. You see that the system from China doesn't really work well because the design is ethically very problematic. And then there's another report on Wall Street months later saying that all those contact tracing apps from the West is not really efficient. It's actually relatively easy to act as an ethical king. But actually, it was really hard that if you have a well-designed system, but it doesn't really work, it's really a problem. Then you don't have to introduce the system into the reality to create problems. So the problem is really that if the design shows its ethical concerns, but in which way we can secure these problems. So that's something we need to face, actually. In the interest of time, I'm skipping some of the slides. And now we're thinking of a long-term strategic planning for AI, that we have very different roles for AI in the world. That in Japan is more of a partner instead of tools. But when you go to the Western society, most of the Western societies see that they are tools. And China is in between. And in sci-fi is more of a competitor or enemies. I think really that being a partner or a competitor for artificial general intelligence is really relying on in which way we're going for long-term AI and AGI. No matter in which way we are actually implementing artificial general intelligence, there will be very different safety concerns. But what we need is really a timely, long-term strategic research on various associated risks for different passes along artificial general intelligence. We're having machine to do humanization. We also have human to do the mechanization, to create a super intelligence. Philosophical questions are related but very different. Like from the human side, when we're doing mechanization to augmented intelligence, we're always asking the fundamental question of who we are. But for the machine, we're asking who they are. But for the super intelligent conscious living becoming that I say, is we're asking the new question of who the new we will be, because we're having a new form of the merged intelligent becomings. It's really that, like the previous talk, we're mentioning the environmental issues for AI. So that is why not only we need strategic research on the long-term impact of AGI and associated risk, and to avoid those side effects from now on. Really that we need to go more broader vision, where are we going at the beginning, that we need a ecology-centric approach to AI to really keep the AI more sustainable. This is why we're having the AI for Sustainable Development Goals Cooperation Network, which now we have more than 15 experts from more than 15 countries to join us to really keep us in a more sustainable way for the future of AI. One of the example is AI for children that we did recently for the Beijing principles on AI for children. And the report on MIT Technology Review says why kids need special protection from AI's influences. A lot, many actually, based on our studies. So for example, they have their own willingness to express. That is way different from us actually. And also they're the most vulnerable groups. So for example, when you use emotion recognition, that no one liked it in China, and it has been abandoned use after 4 days of the launch of the technology by the Ministry of Science and by the Ministry of Education. They said, stop it. So the concern is not only about privacy, the concern is just like concerning, thinking about the scenario that you have a 3-year-old girl, and then for 15 years, after 15 years, when she go to college, and then you say that, how about study AI as your profession? She will say no, because since the beginning in the kindergarten, that they have an emotion recognition system with them for 15 years. And then you want them to choose AI as a profession. So they say that fundamentally in my life, I hate this technology. So how come you say that I would like to have a profession like this? So that's the really long-term impact to the next generation. It's not only about the current privacy, it's not only about their identity, it's about really how the teachers and students are interacting with each other, how actually they're looking at the mirrors, it's not they're looking at each other, understand each other. There are analysis on the points on their faces, but there are no understanding between teachers and students. That's the problem. But it does not mean you cannot use facial recognition in the schools. For example, you can use them for campus bullying. And then at the same time, you say by using some kind of differential privacy techniques, you can save the privacy, but at the same time, to detect the abnormal behavior, to save people from campus bullying. That is the good use. I would like to end my talk by the movie from Steven Spielberg that really creates a robot that can love. But a women professor says that, what if a human being, if a robot could genuinely love a person, what are the responsibilities of the person hold towards the mega in return? Actually, at last, we will have general intelligence that has reflexive thinking, that will say, why me or why not you? So it's not only that we're having principles for AI to interact with human, and then by that time, when you have AI with certain levels of consciousness, you will have problems. So we need principles for human to interact with AI. So for example, if they do not really hurt human beings in any way, they should have some of their own privacy on the basis that it does not really hurt human. And also you cannot have bias on a machine. If you have two people in the in a secret room and something bad happens, you cannot say that's the machine. So that is our proposal on harmonious artificial intelligence principles for artificial general intelligence. That's not for the current AI. I would like to end my talk by using this slides. So the book is about, it's Moral Machine by Wendell Wallach and Colin Allen. So on the Chinese version, there's this new sentence compared to the English version. It says, put the machine to the moral cage. So I asked my friend, Wendell, and Wendell says that he liked the sentence and would like to put the sentence on the surface of the second version. And I said that then don't mail me your second version, because like 5 years ago, we have a robot that can watch YouTube to cook. And now after 2 years, you have robot that can watch movies, trying to understand movies in some way, or pretend to understand movies in some way. But just think about the scenario that's after 30 years, you have a general AI watching YouTube on how humans are treating AI. Now, who is being in the cage? That's my question to Wendell. Wendell, give me good love, but there's no reply. I think there's no need to reply. So that, I thank you for your attention. That I don't think that we will die because of general intelligence. I think if we're not careful enough, just like what Norbert Wiener says, that during the process of developing narrow AI, we will die if we will not be so cautious and careful enough for those issues that has been raised, not only by me, but also by the two colleagues in previous talks. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Again, a very interesting contribution for this event. So now it's time to open the questions to the audience. I think you can use the chat to book your question, and then you can use also your microphone if you want to ask a question. So, does anybody want to ask a question? So I can start in the meanwhile, and I don't know, maybe the question is for Deborah or E, I'm not sure, but I'm interested in having your comments about the possibility to make a sort of comparison between harmonious artificial intelligence that Zeng just proposed and the concept of accountability that Deborah was emphasizing at the beginning. I don't know, maybe Deborah, you could start, or E.
Thank you, Viola, for the question. If I may go for the first.
Sure.
The concept of harmony that I mentioned in the middle of my talk, that's for the current AI, where it has been mentioned in the Beijing AI principles and the national governance principles of the new AI. And also, I think similar concept has been used in Japanese version of their own AI principles by using the word symbiotic society, which is very similar concept, I would say. For that harmony, I think that's for the narrow AI, which is not really a problem. But for the harmonious AI principles that I propose for the artificial general intelligence, that's for conscious living becomings, like a robot that is with certain levels of consciousness, with reflexive thinking. In that case, those AGI are responsible agents But for now, we don't really have that kind of agent. It would be stupid to say that, oh, you will show your empathy to your computer. When you kick them, you say sorry. So that is silly, because for now, they are not emotional. They're not with certain levels of consciousness. They're not a living becoming. So that's for AGI. For AGI, I think that they could be at certain point to be a responsible agent from a certain levels of at some level. But for the current AI, there's no way that it can act as a responsible agent. For example, when people propose that for the AI that has been used to produce scientific solutions, and then can we give them credit? Can we give the patent to the AI? And then WIPO says that people have different ideas. My idea is that you cannot, because firstly, it's not a responsible agent. Or secondly, if AI got benefits, or at the same time, for those patents, if something goes wrong, if something have safety issues for those patents, then who is responsible for this? Again, if the agent is responsible for this to get the benefit, then for now, it's themselves. I mean, the AI should be responsible for those safety issues. But for now, there's no way. So my quick answer for that would be that currently we don't really have an AI that is with the right level of consciousness to act as a responsible agent. When we're talking about responsible AI, still we're talking about responsible scientists and responsible engineers to create a beneficial AI.
Do you want me also to respond?
Yes, please.
So, well, first that clarified things, but I guess I'm kind of reluctant to think about these futuristic scenarios. When I hear these futuristic scenarios about general intelligence, artificial intelligence, and them having consciousness and becoming capable of all, I flip to a kind of meta question. I mean, in other words, I kind of object to kind of even engaging in that kind of fantasy, but it makes me do the meta question of, so why is it that people are talking that way? And what does it mean? Because I think it's a lot of metaphorical use of language. And I think about what I know about technology is not that it has this kind of natural evolution to the next step. We can do this now, we can do this next, et cetera. There are always social forces, whether they're economic or political or some other kinds of forces that shape the direction of future technology. And in this case, we'd say future AI. And, I don't even know what it means to say that we'll have these futuristic general intelligence, but we certainly have to ask, why would we want to develop that? And if we did, what would be the political and social and economic forces that would lead us to want to deploy it in a particular way? So it kind of gets into this territory that I find, sort of difficult. I certainly, so the whole idea that an AI could be responsible ultimately, I don't know what it means, because I don't know what that AI would be that you could call it responsible. I mean, I can imagine legal schemas where you'd have some sort of liability for the people who owned the AI or deployed the AI. But anyway, so.
Thank you, but if I may, thank you for the.
Please, we have many questions. I don't want to stop you, but just leave space for other questions. I'm sorry, but we have still 10 minutes, and maybe I would like to collect some other questions, if you agree. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so there's a question from Alireza Saebi. So go ahead, Alireza, but please try to keep your question short.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hello to everyone, and thanks a lot from Guglielmo about his very, very nice lecture. It's my point of view, and I want to add some short comment to his lecture, because many times the AI systems could not decide directly by their own, and maybe prepare some information, some basic information for human decision making. In this situation, also, we have to be careful about interpreting their provided data, because, for example, we have 3 or more, I remember 3 cases about airplane crashes in Iran, in south of Iran, my country. And in last year we have...
Can you repeat, please, the crash, the airplane crash?
Yes, last year we have the airplane crash, Ukrainian airplane. And for example, 9 or 10 years before in Persian Gulf, we have another crash by American US Navy troopers. And all of these cases, the basic data from these cases interpreted by AI systems, you know, from image processing systems, something like that. No difference between them in my point of view. But for example, in some justice case, judiciary cases, AI provides some, AI-based systems provide some basic information for judges about decision making to make someone guilty or not. And we have to notice these sort of information provided by AI systems. As you mentioned in your lecture, sometimes AI systems decided by themselves, and in other cases, as I mentioned, they provide some information for our decision making. And in these cases, also, we have to be careful how to interpret their information. And maybe human had to engage to the decision-making process in critical situations. I try to tell you short.
Thank you.
If required, I can explain more about these situations.
Yeah, thank you very much. Viola, may I say something about this? Yes,
Sure.
thank you. Thank you so much. I'm not familiar with the proceedings of the investigations after the Ukrainian jet airliner crash, but I know a little more about the other Persian Gulf accident. And there, definitely, it was a misinterpretation, or not really a misinterpretation, but it was a human bias favoring the machine, which played an important role. People on board of the American ships, which eventually launched the missile, which brought down the airjet, essentially, at a certain point in investigation, say that who were they to contradict what the artificial intelligence Aegis system had done? Okay, and I think we should always remind ourselves in this connection of the story of Major Petrov, who saved the world from a nuclear war, because he was somehow he decided that he had not to trust the machine. So there's a problem also of over trusting the machine, okay, in many cases. And with AI, we have this problem definitely. So there's a lot to be said about the roles that humans can have. Of course, not exhaustive roles, because sometimes they fail to, but as fail-safe systems, which should be designed into the human AI integration.
Okay, thank you very much. There was a question from Georgios Kostakos. So Georgios, if you want to ask your question, short questions and short answers, please.
Many thanks. Yes, I was asking about this. One way to treat artificial intelligence is the level of its development today, which is more like an enhancer of human functions, faster and whatever, having more data capacity. And there we can put some rules, and we need more rules to make sure humans are not harmed. But if we go to what Yi said about creating a new sentient species that has rights and responsibilities and keeps learning, etc., is that inevitable? Is our let's say, capacity to do that, do we have to do that also? I don't know why we should complicate our lives so much and go to science fiction, but I can see that we can do it if we want to. Thank you.
Can I add a sentence, Viola?
Sure, go ahead.
I think it's also related to what Deborah said. It's really that we're not, ultimately there will be many people who is doing this. For example, OpenAI want to realize AGI in 10 years, and Google DeepMind says that will be 15 years. But the problem for philosophers and AI practitioners together is really that if somebody is doing this, so who is taking care of the future? So that my idea is that the philosophers and the computer scientists should work together. What if it happens? What is the associated risks? So how to avoid them? That's where we need to focus on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now Enrico Nardelli raised his hand. So Enrico, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Viola. So my question is about the prospected use of AI to solve large and complex problems, and also is somehow related to the comment by Deborah about the social elements. So my point is that solving large and complex societal problems, the issue is that these problems never have a purely technical solution. Every solution has to choose a trade-off between contrasting and sometimes incompatible viewpoints. And the solution of this problem, therefore, can only be done by human beings through discussion and debate, which is what we have been doing in democracies since centuries. And also, this discussion between human beings is never a pure calculus like Leibniz wished for. I mean, it's because our intelligence, our rationality is embodied in our body and is shaped by our experience. I mean, so it can never be done in a pure rational approach, with a pure rational approach. And also, if there should be some kind of general intelligence in the very far future, in which body will this be embodied? And if it's not our body, how similar to us will be? How can we trust what this being is going to say to us? That's my comment.
So maybe Deborah, if you want to add.
Well, I would say I agree, though. I heard what you were saying change a little bit. I think all human problems can only be solved by humans, but maybe not humans alone. That is, I think we can use technology. We have used technology, and we'll be able to in the future use the technology. But the question is, are humans in control, or the question is, I think I also wanted to say the kind of old saying about what we can do and what we should do are different. Humans should always be the ones that are asking and answering the question about what we should do, independent of what we can do. So I don't know if that was much of an answer, but yeah, but I think that's a really good question to ask about what the role of technology should be in solving what are human problems.
Yeah. If I may comment, I see AI, but in general, digital technology as amplifier of cognitive capabilities of human beings, much in the way the traditional industrial machines are amplifier of our physical capability.
Yes.
Therefore, we should use them as amplifier while always being in the driver's seat. Otherwise, it's too dangerous. And we shouldn't.
I agree.
We have still time for a couple of questions. Robert, there's a question from Robert, the beginning.
Hey, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes.
Thank you for the excellent presentations. With respect to EU policies, there's also the suggestion of standardization and even certification of standards of trustworthy AI. Trustworthiness in the meaning building up on European values and fundamental rights. Trustworthiness, as we know, and trust is often used for sheer security or safety, but not in the meaning of considering human dignity, transparency, privacy, or other soft values. What do you think about a standardization for these values in specific domains, in, for example, law enforcement or something like this?
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yes. No. You know, just the general point I was trying to make is that Europe is trying to struggle with some of these problems, some in global issues that I wanted to mention. One was global war. I mean, the danger that we always have as one of which we have the pandemics, the war, and the climate. Okay, so maybe there are a few more that you can mention of it, so overarching issues. And there I see a certain progress also concerning issues like the protection of human dignity, concerning, for example, autonomous weapon systems. The idea that, and it is into European discussion, certainly, the idea that the decision to take the life of someone in war should always be a human decision, so that the potential victim, in a certain sense, maybe that will not come true, but has the possibility to appeal to the empathy of the other side. And we know so many stories in war which confirm this, and also disprove and disconfirm this, of course. So this idea of connecting human dignity to this big global problem where AI is changing the game, definitely, it's a game changer, is coming into play. Very little, I think, about this basic human rights or degenerating principle in human dignity is being used into discussion of AI and climate change. Of course, for all the other applications, I agree with you that it should be important to do so. Okay. I had if there is time later on, Viola, I wanted to make another about the remark about the philosophical issues of consciousness.
I think we have still a couple of minutes because Hannes told me that we can have 5 or 6 or 7 minutes more. So there was Francisco Medeiros, a question from Francisco Medeiros.
Yes, thank you, Viola. My question is to Guglielmo. I understood that you advocate meaningful human control over AI. You stress the fact of, in the case of weapons, but I understood that actually you'd like to have human control of any AI application. The question I have is, doesn't this go against the objective, against the benefits of AI? Why do you have AI? Because your brain, your intelligence is not fast enough. It's not generalized enough. Does not have data enough. So if you introduce human control, you are going against the target of AI. And the final comment is, for instance, today there are many other electronic systems that control things and do different things, make decisions, and they are not AI. Why no one talks about human control over these systems? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Francisco. This wonderful and interesting, most interesting question. I had not time to address exactly what meaningful human control means, but in my last slide, I tried to say differentiated, depends on the application. So for example, let's take the example not of the nuclear power control, but let's keep the AI arms race, and so AI into weapons. If you have a purely defensive system, like, I don't know, the Israeli Iron Dome or other systems which are anti-materiel and protect your soldiers, and then you want to impose a human control also in the use phase, then you are right, that would be wrong, also ethically, okay? But you have a very meaningful human control in the planning phase, and also probably also in some kind of fail-safe intervention if things happen to go wrong for some perturbation, okay? So I think that our approach should be principled in things like the respect for human dignity and other things that are crucial, but at the same time should be sufficiently differentiated. There is no one meaningful human control formula which fits all size of systems. So there is a lot of thinking to be done into the specifics of the context of the applications. But at the same time, I think we should hold on to this basic idea, maybe conjugate into different ways.
Hey, I'm very sorry. We need to stop here. Still many questions unanswered. You can see from the chat. In a sense, it's a pity, but it was great. And thank you very much for joining this meeting in this special day, in particular for Vienna and all the democracies. So there are more events in the future. Peter Knes will show us the next event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Viola, for moderating, and thank you to the participants of the panel, but also for the discussion. Peter, can you put on the slide of the next event? Just for one thing is that for all of you, the slides will be available, and I'm asking Yi and Guglielmo to send me the slides, and then when you go to our website, you can download the slides and having it available. Giving this discussion, I think one of the future panels will be on the future of AI, because I have seen many different aspects in your discussion of the capability, especially also the issue, what is superintelligence, besides whether this will be available. I think this will be an interesting discussion. This brings me already to the announcement of our next event, which somehow is also related with this AI stuff. It is on November 19th and 20th at 4 p.m. It will be a workshop of, let's say, 2 half days. It's called Strategies for a Humanistic Digital Future, and it's our 3rd workshop on digital humanism. So it's in addition to our regular lecture series. So we will have 2 panels each day. We have one panel on, similar to today, we have it with 3 speakers each and moderator. We have one panel moderated by Enrico Natelli, who also spoke previously, on educating for the digital future. Could also be named educating in the digital future. Then we have one on resilience and sustainability, which will be moderated by Sally Wyatt. And then we will have a discussion of international initiatives similar to ours. What would be possible steps of cooperation and next steps, and this will be moderated by Carlo Ghezzi. And there is a panel which is already fully designed. It's on AI developments in Europe. It's moderated by George Metakidis, And this is a focus on AI future and the European role, with 4 speakers, 4 ladies, one from Columbia University and New Bradford, and Marietje Schaake from Stanford. We have an advisor strategist for Europe, which is Shada Islam. And we even have a member of the European Parliament, which is Asima Kopolo. So this is the panel on AI developments in Europe, and this is already fully designed. You can have all the information on our website, and we will send out a save the date tomorrow so that you can put this on your agenda. Having said this, I see that there are still many in the listener list. I thank you again and see you on the 19th and 20th of November. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, and thank you for nice lectures tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Yi, and thank you, Guglielmo, and thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Bye.
And I'm Ali Reza, dear professor, right now, and really thank you for participating in these